Hi everyone, and welcome to the second video for our Big Girls on the Move crowdfunding campaign. Thank you to everybody who's contributed to the campaign since we began, and also for your generous comments both on the page and in the inboxes. So I'm really committed to sharing some of the stories from behind the walls of domestic violence shelters. On Instagram, I have a hashtag, which is hashtag conversations in domestic violence shelters. And today I'd like to talk about a topic that is a little contentious, a little complex, and sometimes a very hurtful conversation for women who are leaving or have left or want to leave domestic violence. And that is the term, why didn't she leave? And it's also followed by the term, or accompanied with a, why did she stay? If that had been me, I'd have left. So I think probably for people who have not experienced domestic violence personally, or who aren't involved in working in the sector, the question comes from a very genuine place of thinking, if things had been so bad for so long, why did she stay? So today I'd like to talk about some of the reasons why women have said that they stay, and hopefully just bring forward some of the broader complications and challenges for women leaving domestic violence. There are hashtags across Twitter and across social media, why I stayed, why didn't she leave? So you can learn more from some of those stories directly. Pardon me. But for this conversation today, I'm going to share some of the stories that I've heard, and in my own younger life I experienced directly also. And then I'll be following that with sharing one of the creative tools that I use in my Art of Change program as part of a conversation for women to feel safe and comfortable talking about why she stayed. And also we need to acknowledge the incredible courage it takes to leave under sometimes the most very difficult of circumstances. So I see women who leave, no matter how long it took to leave, as very brave, courageous warrior women. So there are an enormous amount of diversities in the women's stories. Every woman who comes to a shelter has a different story. So sometimes there's cultural reasons why a woman has stayed longer. There can be an expectation by family members that she stay. For some women, they've actually grown up with domestic violence, and that kind of the behaviour and the sort of the emotional currents have been normalised, and so she may endure or put up with behaviour that somebody else might not, because it has been normalised in her life. One of the quotes, the hashtag why I stayed quotes, was that I didn't know what kindness looked like. A fabulous woman I met inside of a shelter one time said to me, I became an expert at making a banquet out of crumbs, because her self-esteem was so low, and it wasn't, in her situation, it wasn't that she had high self-esteem and it was eroded. It was that she grew up in an environment where she was psychologically and emotionally abused, and then she came out of her childhood with that pattern and felt a sense of familiarity with that, with those relationships where she felt bad. And this is not about blaming a victim in those situations, but some women, as part of the recovery journey, have had to look at, why did I have 2 or 3 relationships with similar kind of men? One of the very common themes that we hear is when women will say, he was so beautiful all through my pregnancy, all through when I had my baby or my babies, he was there. And so when there's also violence and control issues, like the complete opposite of the spectrum, it can be very difficult to reconcile those two opposites. And women will often say, it was more good than it was bad, to sort of try and bring some kind of sense to the controlling relationship. another one that can be quite confronting, and I'll just put in an alert here that some of these things I'm talking about can maybe trigger feelings for you. So I'm going to be making myself available in the comments afterwards for any thoughts or reflections or feedback. So one of the women has, or in fact many women have said, he said he would kill us both if I left. So what that means is that it can be safer to stay in a dangerous situation than an even more dangerous situation of knowing that he will fulfill that promise, or even if he doesn't, the threat of that. So staying means that, or one woman put it this way, she said, it's better the devil you know than the one you don't know. You know, these are very confronting things to hear, but within the context of the larger story of when women do leave domestic violence and their journey of recovery, these are stages that many women experience, but I'm a great believer in women's capacity to redirect their lives and create the life that they want to, because I see it a lot, and it's a great privilege. So one woman said, I was so terrified, I stopped leaving the house. So what that means is the terror inside of the house, the uncertainty, the feeling that an attack is imminent, then becomes a state of mind, and the external world can start to feel unsafe as well. So she may find a sense of safety in a small little place, and that becomes kind of her safety place in the world, which is ironic that it is within side of the walls of domestic violence. So then the thought of leaving, the challenge of actually going out into the world, finding help, receiving help, beginning again, worried about the pets, worried about the children and their schooling. So all of these things, even one of those things can be very psychologically challenging and emotionally draining. But if you've got multiple things all happening at the same time, then it can feel almost safer in that environment. We know that pets suffer in domestic violence, and one woman said, I saw him kill my kitten and I knew that he could do that to me. That's why I stayed, because I knew that if I left, I was at risk. Someone else said, I think I had that Stockholm syndrome thing where you feel connected to your abuser. On my Art of Change in Domestic Violence page, which I'll link in the comments, I've posted an article about trauma bonding, which means when it's really good and the serotonin's flowing, it's great, it's a chemical state. Then when it's stressful and all of those stress hormones are released, it's a deficit chemical state. And so actually the body becomes chemicalized to getting that sort of boost from when things are good or when he's not so threatening. So there is also a biology of staying, not just the psychology and the emotional place. And also another very common one is I wanted the children to have both parents, not come from a broken home like I did. And then often the realisation that follows on the journey of recovery is actually we were all living in a broken home, that a parent doesn't need to leave for the home to be broken. But it's a very real desire that a mother will have for her children to have the family unit as a peaceful, strong one. And it seems that, you know, having the two parents, and again, I just like to emphasise, I'm talking about the dynamics between men and women, but there's also same-sex relationship considerations and a whole diversity. But just in reference to working in women's shelters, women will say, I just wanted my kids to have both of their parents because I wanted to have my father and he was never around. And pardon me, we're seeing a rise in women coming to shelters who have met men online. They've met them overseas, or it's been a sort of a dating kind of thing. Women have come here on a visa with no economic security, no status, just that they're here on a partner visa. He takes the passport, and the reason she stayed is because she couldn't leave. And so, again, all power to our fabulous domestic violence system that has things in place to assist women from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, which the acronym in the field is the COLD women, refugee women, that is recognised as a very particular area of safety in domestic violence. So that's a few of the reasons, and when I just see here, I had nowhere to go. So as much as there are resources available, women often don't know that there is a system out there that can assist them. They may hear about it in the news, but it's not something that they may not realise, that there are support workers and shelters and outreach and advocacy, and feeling that I had nowhere to go. In fact, I heard recently an older woman saying that a lot of the 50s brides, who, before there was income support and shelters, they would say they really did have nowhere to go. There was no financial support and there were no shelters. So that's some of the reasons, and as I said, some of those can be quite confronting. It can be a bit of a trigger to hear them, but I think it's important to really recognise there's a whole range of reasons as to why women stay, and when they do leave, that is an act of courage rather than to have the added pressure of saying, why didn't you leave before? We need to respect that every woman is on her own journey, and leaving is never a straightforward thing. So my Art of Change program that I mentioned, we create art in our colouring conversations, and we talk about some of these themes. It's a way to get the hands processing some of the things that the busy mind is consumed with. It's a way to engage with fun and colour and creativity during a difficult chapter of life. So I'd just like to share this. Here is the Warrior Woman template. And you can see there, it's just a black and white, it's almost like a colouring page. And here she has a headdress. Some people said, oh, is she an angel? She's not. She's a warrior woman, but she could be if you looked at it that way. But she's wearing a headdress which represents becoming aware of how our thoughts affect our feelings. And we see she has a multi-layered heart there. And she's also has big wings. So this is a template we put on the table, and I'm just going to show you how she transforms. So we can see here that her headdress is colourful and bright. My beautiful mother Maureen created this one, and she is strong and centred with her colour. And what we're able to talk about while we're creating the Warrior Woman is that, yes, the heart has many layers, because some women will say, I'm glad I left, I miss him, I never want to see him again, I'm worried about his mental health. So actually mixed feelings and dual emotions are happening. So what we say in that conversation is, that's okay, that's just normal. The challenge is how to use the mind and clear thinking so that the emotions don't override what is really in her best interest. So when we create the Warrior Woman, we see she's on cardboard now, and she stands on the dresser or the dressing table or the top of the television and becomes a visual trigger, because the journey of recovery from domestic violence is a long one. And sometimes it's good to have a trigger that reminds you of that conversation you were having about the power of our mind, that when we train our mind and practice mindfulness and go into that area of personal development, we can use our thinking and our thoughts to overcome some of those difficult feelings that we're having and to act in a way that's in our best interest. And we can see she can work with mixed media. Again, this is one that Mum made. So she's a lot of fun. She's a lot of creative activity. Anybody that's experienced domestic violence knows that the mind is often so consumed with worry and concern that fun and creativity and imagination or creative imagination don't really get a look in. So this is a way to process some of those concerns and worries in a creative, peaceful and safe environment. So that's just a little bit of a summary of one of the art tools, but I'll just recap. If you'd like to have a look on Twitter, Instagram, social media, the hashtag why I stayed, the hashtag why didn't she leave, you'll see there's many conversations, and it's a tribute to women's bravery and courage to share those experiences. Some do it anonymously, but some do it from their personal accounts. And if ever you hear anybody say, oh, why didn't she leave earlier? I couldn't work out why she stayed because I would have left. Maybe you could direct them to that hashtag or to this conversation. Now, I will be taking comments, as I said, below. Excuse me, I just have a look on my iPad here. And, oh, it's not opening up. And in closing, I'd like to just redirect you again to our Big Girls on the Move crowdfunding campaign. The campaign is about placing 20 boxes of the Big Girls Little Colouring Book, which is my relaxation, stress relief colouring book, and placing that into 20 domestic violence shelters or agencies that support women who are on that journey of recovery. So far we've placed 4 boxes into shelters. The 5th box, which will be going to Catherine House, supporting homeless women through both accommodation, education, ongoing support. The box will go there. The next box after that will go to Ninko and to Nungamuminars, both Aboriginal women's homeless shelters. Zara Foundation, supporting women through economic empowerment, will receive a box next, and also Northern Domestic Violence Service. So if you do work for an agency in South Australia that supports women in domestic violence, send me an inbox and I can put you on the list. So I think that's pretty well all for today. I can't see if I've got, I just put my glasses on here to see if I have any comments here. No, not yet. So I will be keeping an eye on the comments. If you'd like to share the video, that would be fabulous. Sorry, my sound. If you'd like to share the video, I'd appreciate that. If you would like to contribute to the campaign, I would be most grateful. I have a birthday coming up this week, and often on Facebook now it's saying, would you like to contribute to a fundraiser for the birthday? And I will be asking people on my birthday week to contribute to the Big Girls on the Move crowdfunding campaign. The link is in the comments below, and I'll be live videoing again next on a Tuesday, and that's our new schedule, Saturdays and Tuesdays. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.